Welcome to Wendell's World in Sports.
Be great. Let's be great.
An entertaining and provocative look into the world of sports and beyond.
Play our game. All right? Play hard, but stay poised.
Please feel free to go over to Apple iTunes and rate and review. Your feedback is welcome.
Go rock this thing, huh? Love you, man. Go get it.
And now, the host of the program from the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, Wendell Wallace.
Bonjour, bonsoir, que pasa mi amigos, good morning, good abend, shalom, wassalamu alaikum, namaste, konnichiwa, Wendell's World in Sports. I'm your host, Wendell Wallace. So glad that you could be with us, giving you a new YouTube episode of what I'm going to be putting down on my podcast, which will be published either Tuesday night or Wednesday morning for the most unique, entertaining, thought-provoking sports talk podcast that you can listen to. You go where you listen to your favorite podcasts. You download, you subscribe, you rate, you review, you follow, you enjoy. Again, the most entertaining, unique podcast, sports talk podcast that you can listen to. Give me them 5 stars on iTunes. Wendell's World in Sports, WENDELL''S, World in Sports. Do me that favor, do me that pleasure, do me that honor to go ahead and get that done for me. Would thank very much. And also, if you would go ahead and you like this video, you subscribe to this channel, I would appreciate that also. Wendell's World of Sports, just giving you a preview again of what I'm going to be speaking about on my podcast. Of course, we got the AFC, we got the NFC, week 17 of the NFL season. What did I tell you about Joe Burrow? On my last podcast, what did I tell you? You better put some respect on that man's name when you're speaking about who's going to be the best quarterbacks once Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger and Aaron Rodgers, the next generation of great quarterbacks who's going to take this league into the next generation, who's going to be the face of the franchises, who's going to be the faces of the league, who's going to be that crossover superstar, along with Justin Herbert, along with Deshaun Watson, if he gets his act together, along with Patrick Mahomes. Getting his act together means Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, and others. Man, you better put some recognition. You better put some R-E-S-P-E-C-T, respect when I get home, celebrating special dedication to both Otis Redding and Aretha Franklin's version of respect to the one and only Joe Burrow. Fabulous game against the Kansas City football team, which I'll be speaking about in more detail, and Jamar Chase. My goodness gracious, how can you not consider putting Joe Burrow in terms of the elite category, not just in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, I'm talking about right now, with that weapon that he has, the 21-year-old from LSU. Again, who has the best young offensive skill players in the league today? It's got to be the kid. It's got to be the Cincinnati Bengals. When you take a look at that roster, when you take a look at that squad, I don't know too much about the offensive line, how that's going to hold up, and I don't know about the defense. But in terms of putting together a Super Bowl championship team, you've got yourself a running back, you've got yourself a quarterback, you've got yourself 2 wide receivers that are already at the elite level in terms of moving forward and getting their team in position to be consistent contenders to win championships, to win Super Bowls. And who would have thought people would be saying those type of things about the Cincinnati Bengals still being owned by Mike Brown. So in my podcast, I talk about that. I talk about the seedings. I talk about the standings now with the loss for Kansas City. Tennessee is now the number 1 seed in the AFC. How kosher is that? How strong is that? They know, or we know, or there's rumors, or there's innuendo, or there's thought that there's possibly the return of the Derrick Henry is expected to return before the playoffs. What type of shape is he going to be in? How much is he going to be able to tote the bucket? How much of an impact is he going to have? That remains to be seen. But after everything that went down with all the injuries and everything and all the question marks that concerning the Tennessee Titans in terms of how are they going to perform without the up until then league best MVP running back next to Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, they have done quite well, and now they're the number 1 seed heading into the final week of the season. Kansas City slips to number 2. Buffalo, good victory over Atlanta. They're still leading the AFC East, and then we've got the Cincinnati Bengals in the lead, or the Central Division champs. of the NFC. So those things are falling into place, which I'll get into all of those things. The NFC, good comeback victory by the Los Angeles Rams. Another pick six thrown by Matthew Stafford. How much can you really put into him? How much stock can you put into him? I'll be speaking about that. Another strong victory by the Green Bay Packers moving forward. So in the NFC, for the most part, everything is all set and good. Everything is all in terms of the slots for the playoffs. Most of them have been taken care of, but still in the AFC, there's some things that need to be talked about. There's some games need to be played before we go ahead and give the final playoff cards to them. So I'll be speaking about that on my podcast. But got some college football talk I'm going to talk about on my last podcast video episode of Wendell's World in Sports. I talked about the nonsense of Kurt Hurst and Desmond Howard, speaking about players, college football players today, not loving the game of football as much as they did, and there's a sense of entitlement because some of these players who are supposed to be first-round draft picks are skipping these meaningless exhibitions known as bowl games to get themselves ready for the NFL draft. So Desmond Howard went to town on them. Kurt Hurst went to town on them, and I made the point of saying how silly and how absolutely ridiculous and how tone-deaf and how stuck in the 80s and 90s that you still are to think that these players of today don't love the game as much as you do because they're getting themselves ready for the NFL draft when, once again, they were participating in a meaningless football game, which can only dampen their performances. And I made this, and I'm going to say this on my podcast on Wendell's World of Sports tonight. I was speaking about, when Herb Street and Howard are speaking about players playing in these meaningless bowl games because they love their team and they love competing and all these type of things, how do you know, again, that these players are doing it for the right reasons? Again, how many seniors in these meaningless bowl games are playing this game just because they need better tape? Or because, guess what? The player that was ahead of them is now declaring or saying that he's going to skip the bowl game to go to the NFL, get themselves ready for the NFL. Well, hell, if I'm the backup quarterback and this is my last chance to do some things and I still have some dreams and aspirations about going to the NFL, you're damn right I'm wanting those guys to go so I can get myself an opportunity. Not just the quarterback, but the running back, the offensive lineman, the linebacker, the wide receiver, the cornerbacks, all of those guys. So when Herb Street and Howard are speaking about how wonderful, and Joe Tessitore is up there speaking about how wonderful and how right it is that these guys are not opting out of the secondary bowl games to play in these bowl games, their thought process mainly, I think, is centered on the fact that they love the game and they want to play for their brothers and they want to play for the coach who brought them in there, and the reason why that they have an opportunity to do what they did and grow as they grow, and from boys to men. And I'm not talking about the singing group, but maturing and doing all these type of things. So these guys are playing this game, this bowl game, this meaningless bowl game out of loyalty, out of being thankful to these guys, when it could really mean a situation where these guys don't give a damn about whether they win or lose or not. They want to have some game film. They want to have some good tape so they can take to the NFL to increase their chances and opportunities to become an NFL player. And if that's the case, if they're doing that on a selfish basis, me-first basis, how much is that there, Herb Street? Do they love the game more than when you played because they did it for that reason? Maybe, again, as I mentioned before, there's a situation where there's a sophomore or there's a junior who want to get ahead of the person that they're competing against. So they know going into this bowl game that they have an excellent opportunity to go ahead and play well. And if they play well, then going into the spring football and such, they'll have a leg up on who's going to be the starter for the next season. So they don't care if they win the football game or not. Moving forward, what does winning the Liberty Bowl mean? What does winning the, I don't even know the bowl games, the Pinstripe Bowl or the Toilet Bowl or the No One Gives a Shit Bowl. What momentum will that give any of these players going into next season? What momentum will that give the team going into next season? Who cares? So if I'm going to go out there as a running back and run for 215 yards and we lose, who cares? Because right there, I just solidified my position moving into the spring as the starter for next season. But if I rush for 25 yards on 15 carries and my backup runs for 174 and we win, do you think I'm going to be happy about that? No, hell no, because just then he's leapfrogged me to have the opportunity to have a better opportunity, better chance to become the starter for next season. So for all of this talking nonsense with Herb Street and Howard. I don't know, but that's kind of the stuff that I talked about. Get into it a little bit more. Spoke about the national semifinals, Georgia over Michigan, Alabama over Cincinnati. What does it mean? The 12-team playoffs, all of this stuff moving forward. Another SEC championship game between Georgia and Alabama, or Alabama and someone else, or LSU and someone else, or Georgia and someone else, or what does it mean for the sport moving forward? What can be done for those who might be living on the West Coast, for those who might be living in the Northeast, for those who might be living in the Midwest, for those who might be living in the Plains, for those who might be living in the Pacific Northwest, for those who are not living in Alabama, for those who are not living in Baton Rouge, for those who are not living in Gainesville, Florida, for those who are not living in Clemson, South Carolina, for those who are not living in, Fayetteville, Arkansas. What are we going to do to spread, to grow, to increase the popularity of the sport so it's just not segregated to a certain portion of the country? So what are we going to do about that moving forward? So I talk about that on my podcast, going to be speaking about that on my podcast. And then finally, let's get to some Antonio Brown, shall we? Let's get to this clown, the Antonio Brown, who decided that he was going to quit on his team midway through the third quarter because he was nursing an ankle injury, which kept him out, along with the stupidity of the vaccination. And Bruce Arians told him to get into the game, and he said, I can't because of my ankle. And Bruce Arians said that you're done. And I guess that set Antonio Brown off because, as we all know, as human beings, you do not disrespect Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown keeps it real. Antonio Brown keeps it 100. You don't talk to AB like that. You treat me, you put some respect when you speak about me, old man. You don't do that, white man talking to me like that. Fuck that bullshit. I'm out of here. I'm done. All this shit I did for you, you don't know who the fuck you messing with. This is a real nigga right here. I don't be fucking playing that bullshit, all that nonsense with AB. So he lost it, threw his helmet, threw his pads. Mike Evans, O.J. Howard trying to, just like a child, trying to calm down the child who was throwing a tantrum because he didn't get the Captain Crunch and the Tootsie Rolls, because too much sugar makes you too hyper. So he didn't get his way. So when the little kid, the immature kid known as Antonio Brown, was throwing the temper tantrum, and O.J. Howard and Mike Evans, the two adults of the many for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster, came over and tried to calm him down, AB was like, fuck that, man. Nobody's going to disrespect me like that. That motherfucker wants me out of here. Guess what? I'm done, this, that, the other. So to prove how real he is, to prove how strong he is, a strong black man that can't be kept down, to prove all those things, not just to his teammates, but also to the fans in New York and everything else, he took off his pads, he took off his shirt, did jumping jacks, threw the peace sign, and said, AB is out. All of that nonsense. So Antonio Brown, done. Career should be done after this. I don't even think Daniel Snyder of the Washington Foolskins can go so low to try to acquire Antonio Brown. So this might be, after 4 strikes, 5 strikes, 6 strikes, 10 strikes, this might be the final strike and you're out. This might be the final nail in a bevy of nails put into that coffin known as Antonio Brown's NFL career. This might be the final one. So now we turn to this. Now we turn to, which I'll be speaking about on my podcast. Now we turn to, oh my goodness gracious, we have to be concerned about Antonio Brown. We have to be worried about Antonio Brown because some of the things that he's been doing, not just yesterday with his dismissal from the NFL with his actions and his antics, not with just that, but everything that's been going down with Antonio Brown for God knows how long, we have to be concerned about him as a human being. Forget the football player and all that stuff. I think we have to be concerned about Antonio Brown, the human being. I say F-U-C-K, forget that. Antonio Brown is a grown-ass man. I don't give 2 shits about Antonio Brown. I don't give a fuck what he does. If that clown wants to act like a clown, then go ahead. If you want to get some help, then go get some help. If enablers want him to continue the path that he's on, continue the path that he's on with the circumstances, with the consequences of his actions, good or bad, faced right in front of him. Either way, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Look, man, I'm an over 50-year-old man with so many other things to worry about in my life. I don't got time to be worrying about the well-being, the mental and physical well-being of Antonio Brown. I don't, you don't, and neither does anybody that you know. Antonio Brown don't give two shits about what's going on in Wendell Wallace's life, nor should he. So why should I give two shits about what's going on with Antonio Brown? If the man wants to act like a fool, the man's going to act like a fool. And this had nothing to do with mental illness. This had nothing to do with CTE. This had nothing to do with taking too many shots, even though I'm not a doctor, even though I'm playing one here on this episode. This is all about a grown-ass man who's an immature fool. This is the man who's not very intelligent. Why? Examples? Take a look at him. Plenty to go around. Plenty to be shown to show that this man is not very intelligent. Listen to him talk. This man is not very intelligent. Go back and review all of his antics. Go back and listen to some of his bullshit. This is a man who never had to grow up. This is a man who never had to mature. This is a man who, as soon as people knew that this was a guy who had a given gift from God that was greater than 99.95% of the human population walking this earth, they enabled him to act like a fool. They enabled him to be stupid. They enabled him to be ignorant. They enabled him to do the shit that he did. So you're talking about a man with a childlike mentality, and you're sitting there confused and you're sitting there worried about his mental state. This is the reason why we don't let 6-year-olds vote. This is the reason why we don't let 12-year-olds drive a car. This is the reason why, even though the 6-year-olds looking to vote, but this is the reason why we don't let 8-year-olds make major decisions on things, because they're not smart enough, they're not experienced enough, and they're not mature enough to do these things. So if we allowed 8-year-olds, or if we allowed 12-year-olds, or if we allow those going through puberty right now to have $1 million and have a bunch of yes men saying whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it, they would be Antonio Brown. And that's what Antonio Brown is. And the reason why we don't allow these kids to do these things is because they're too immature and not experienced enough in life to make the right decision. It doesn't mean that they have anything mentally wrong with them. It doesn't mean they need to see a psychiatrist. It just means that when you're 8 years old, nobody should be out driving a car. When you're 10 years old, nobody at that age should be worried about paying a mortgage, paying bills, and making sure their brothers and sisters are taken care of financially, mentally, and emotionally. So why are we going to not say mental illness on that common sense notion with a adolescent when we have a grown man who has the mentality of an adolescent? So no, Antonio Brown doesn't need to go to a shrink. Antonio Brown, there ain't nothing wrong with that motherfucker from the outside looking way far in. Antonio Brown needs to grow the fuck up. And that's his decision, not mine. Antonio Brown has made millions of dollars. He's going to get a nice, sweet pension when his football career ends, which it did probably on Sunday. So Antonio Brown financially is going to be set for life. The name Antonio Brown is going to be there. And if Antonio Brown decides to turn his life around and grow up and act like a human being and act like an adult, there's going to be many more avenues and roads for Antonio Brown to go down to where he can keep all of his kids financially happy and secure and well off for generations upon generations. Everything is sitting there. If Antonio Brown wants to go ahead and have a podcast and talk about mental illness or talk about the things that he went through or growing up and maturing or whatever, people will want to hear Antonio Brown talk. Podcasting sites will be happy to pay Antonio Brown to talk about it. Whatever comes out of his mouth, good or bad. People will want to listen. People will listen. So no, I don't feel sorry for Antonio Brown. I don't give a shit about Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's a clown. Antonio Brown acted like a clown. Antonio Brown needs to be laughed at. Antonio Brown needs to be mocked. Antonio Brown needs to be called a fool, because when you act like a fool, then you are a fool. Period. When you have episodes like this,
send it here. Go ahead, bitch ass out of here with your white folks. They want white people to help white people. Get the fuck out of here. Come on, Paulo. I love you. Love you. Go, baby. Give me that. Go, baby. White fucking guys ain't got no justice. Get the fuck out of here. You let this bitch steal my key. Get the fuck out of here. Go. Go. Goodbye. Get the fuck out of here, you bitch ass police. Fucking people can't do nothing. You fucking white fishbowl, get the fuck out of here, you bitch. Come on, Polo. The fuck out of here. Fucking police can't have nothing, you fucking bitch ass law. Get the fuck out of here, you fucking pussies. Fucking bitch. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of my property, you pussies. Fuck out of here. I love you, Poppy. I love you. Go at them bitch ass police. Get the fuck out of here. Bitch ass little cop. Look at the little cop. You wish you could take me, you bitch ass nigga. Fuck out of here. Yeah, justice for no man. Fuck.
That's a fool. That's an ignorant fool. If you saw someone in your neighborhood acting like that, I don't give a damn what neighborhood you're talking about. I don't care if you're talking about Beverly Hills or I don't care if you're talking about Liberty City. I don't give a damn what you're talking about. If you saw somebody who wasn't Antonio Brown, if you just saw Joe Schmo, person in your community, living in your community, acting like that, talking like that, you would turn to somebody and say, that is one goddamn fool right there. There's not somebody, you wouldn't turn to somebody and say, oh gosh, that guy really needs help. We really need to feel sorry for him. Gee whiz. No, you would be saying that is a motherfucking fool. Antonio Brown is a fool. Antonio Brown is a clown. Antonio Brown is a joke. And he's an embarrassment to our community. So, you know, we sit there, and the black community sure knows how to put their arms around clowns in our community who do nothing but embarrass them. I don't. I don't put my arm around Floyd Mayweather Jr. I don't put my arm around Antonio Brown. If you're going to represent my community and act like that and act like a fool when you have numerous opportunities to get yourself right financially, then no, I'm not feeling sorry for you. I don't give a damn what happens. I don't care if you get yourself right and become a shining example of rehabilitation and turning your life around, or I don't care if 6 months later we find you hanging out on the street with Delonte West, barely hanging on to life in reality. Don't care. Do not care. So those are some of the things I'll be talking about on my podcast coming up this upcoming days. Wendell's World in Sports, WENDELL''S, anywhere, again, where you listen to your favorite podcast. Make sure that you download, subscribe, rate, review the most unique, important, exciting, thought-provoking sports talk podcast that you can listen to. Wendell Wallace of Wendell's World in Sports. Look forward to listening. Look forward to having you listen to my podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Music.